This video is going to be about how I paint and texture my grass hexes. If you're an experienced terrain maker, there's probably not very much to teach you here. You'll be well used to the techniques. There's nothing special about how to do it with hexes. But it is something I get asked from time to time, so it'll be worth making a short video about it. So I have a text here which you probably saw in a previous video. I was showing how to draw out micro hexes. But that's not something I need for my wargaming. Thankfully I had the foresight to use a sort of bronzy brown pen, which is roughly the same colour as I'll be painting the hex. A few things you're going to need: some newspaper, because it's paint, you don't want to get it on your desk. A brown paint, this is burnt umber. I like to use acrylic paints, but you don't want to use the little pots that you do for painting miniatures because it just costs you a fortune. I found this one a bit too dark though, so I mixed this with some white paint. So I got this from a bargain shop in the UK for artist materials. So these are I think £2.50 and £3 or something like that each. It's quite cheap. You want a palette to mix it, paintbrush, and I use a paper clip usually for mixing my paint, just to save the brushes, although this is a pretty old brush that's seen a lot of abuse. You need a bit of water, and because we're going straight onto polystyrene, I like to mix a bit of PVA glue, white glue, into the paint. It helps seal the polystyrene and just toughens it up a little bit for free. So I'm only going to do the one hex and not use too much paint, and I should say in advance I'm going to be doing 2 coats here from past experience, so no need to. So I use roughly equal parts brown, white and PVA, just because it's easy to remember really. If you can find a paint that's the right shade of brown for you straight out of the tube, great, that'll save you a bit of effort. And the thing to remember with PVA, obviously it's white when it's wet, but it's going to dry clear. So that means if you're mixing a colour, bear in mind it's going to look a lot lighter before it dries than it will do after it's dried. Because of that, because obviously the white of the glue is going to make this brown look a lighter shade than it would otherwise be. Which is why it's good to just, do a pre-mix that you know, rather than trying to mix and match to the something that's next to you. Okay, it's done. As you can see, it's pretty thick, so I'm going to add in a little bit of water. So it's a good consistency. Maybe I put too much water in now. Let's see. Okay. And then just paint evenly over the whole thing. So, as I said, it's going to take 2 coats, so don't worry about not looking thick enough. And as with anything when you're making hexes, if you can do it on batch, you're going to save yourself a lot of time and effort. By which I mean, get yourself a dozen hexes all ready to paint at the same time. Because although the painting may take the same time, the mixing, of the paint, cleaning your brushes, setting up your work area. It's much better to do it all at once, then repeatedly. I always paint the sides of my hexes, and I recommend you do the same. Two reasons for that. One, if it's on the edge of your battlefield, it'll look a lot nicer if you've got a painted edge than if you've got white polystyrene. And the other reason is in the middle of your battlefields, where the hexes are joined, if there's any small gaps between them, even the smallest gap, if you've got pure white showing through that gap, it's really going to draw attention to it. So it's definitely worth doing that. Don't ever be tempted to just put turf or any other kind of scenery onto your hex without painting it first. It may seem like less effort, but it's just going to show through. What I haven't done in this hex, which I probably should have done, was put the cog interlock at the bottom first, but then I'd be able to hold it by that, and I wouldn't be getting paint on my fingers. Maybe you can be smarter than I was. I don't bother painting the underside of my hexes, can if you like, but they at least shouldn't be seen. Okay, just touch the bits I was holding. Right, and I'll cover up my pot. Just that paint, because I'll use that same paint mix for the second coat. And I have a toolkit to post to somewhere in America, so I'll cycle off and do that, and when I come back I should be able to paint the second coat. Right, I'm back from the post office. So one toolkit on its way to North Dakota. Let's put on the second coat now. That's the first coat. I guess it's like a bit of an undercoat of the right colour, but the second coat just sticks much better. So that first coat is primed it. So I'm pleased to see that the micro hex grid is disappearing now. Although of course under the turf it'll be gone altogether. You could possibly use a slightly bigger brush than this. I've had this one for decades. Doesn't need anything fancy. And you probably don't even need to use acrylic paint, and it's just what I'm used to from painting miniatures. It's nice and easy to clean your brushes and water down. But I know some people paint their terrain with emulsion paint, just because it's so much cheaper than anything else. It's been designed to paint interior walls, so people need it in large quantities. Okay, second coat done. So I'll come back to the last stage, which is the turfing. Here's our hex. I've given it a good chance to dry. The paint job's not brilliant, but it's perfectly good for our needs. And a reminder, this is what we're aiming to end up with. So what we need to use, or what I choose to use, are some products from Woodland Scenics, which is a quite a popular company for railroad terrain. And there's two kinds of turf I use here. This is a blended turf called an earth blend, so it's quite a brown, sort of browny green shade. So that's earth blend, and then on top of that I use green blend, which is much more grassy. Probably you can use just one or pick whatever kind of turfing you like. Some people like to use different flocks like coloured sawdust, sawdust mixed with paint and glue. A very cheap option. Although to be honest, I bought a bag of each of these originally. There's loads still left. It seems perfectly economical to me. You decide. For adding them to your terrain, you'll want some kind of shaker. You can buy a shaker for wooden scenics, but it's just a big tub with holes in the top. So I just got a jar, hammered and nailed through to make lots of holes. Put in my turf blend. That's a perfectly good shaker. If it doesn't work well enough, just put a bigger nail through it. Right, you can use a sprayer. Well, this is the product that they recommend you use, which is something called scenic cement. I've always been a little bit sceptical about this because it kind of looks very much like watered down PVA glue, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to find that it is. But I've never really put it to the test. This is the second bottle of this I've bought. Again, it goes a long way, so it's not that expensive really. But you may want to try something cheaper if budget is a big concern. For the first coat, I like to get full coverage, so I use a brush just to cover the upper surface. And it makes it a bit less messy than if you don't do this. If you spray it on, anytime you spray it on, you have to start cleaning it off the sides. And for our subsequent layers, we will need to do that, but let's limit as much as we can. Okay, that's good coverage. So we'll start with the earth blend and just shake it on. Okay. Looks good. Now to save materials, I'm not the best at this, but what you should do really is do it on a piece of paper like this. Tuck it to the side to get the excess off. You can see I've missed a little bit there. I'm not quite sure how I got missed, but I've done a bit of glue on there just to get that bit. And we'll cover it again. Okay, perfect coverage is not essential. And then pour the excess back into your jar. To get maximum use. We'll ignore that bit I spilled on the table. And now we'll use a sprayer, so you can just get a spray gun. You can buy them from like a garden centre or something like that. And we're going to lightly spray the upper surface. As long as you don't spray too close, you don't need to worry about waiting for the first layer to dry particularly. Just a good spray to get it going. Carry on. I've not used this in a while. Okay, I'll pause the video while I try and fix this blockage. Okay, so I fixed my problem with the sprayer. I think what it was is that although I've given this a good shake, there's obviously some thicker glue at the bottom of this, which is blocking up the sprayer. So I've decanted some into a separate bottle, and now it sprays quite easily. So we're going to spray the upper surface. spray quite well. And I like to clean the edges straight away, just run a finger along them. So I just think it's better to do this before you get turf stuck to it. Okay, and then I'm going to sprinkle on some of the green blend turf. So in addition to building up layers of different colours, it also has a bit more sort of body to it. It's a bit like the way I suppose mascara goes on, where you're gluing, not just to the eyelash, or in this case the base, but to the product you've already put on. Now you might want to put on an extra blend. I have, with some of my hexes, used an even lighter one. This is a doesn't really work very well in this jar because it's a thicker one, but you can see it's a much lighter blend, and pepper some of this over the top. I've kind of gone off the idea a bit. It just looks a little bit too salt and pepper like, it doesn't blend in very well. But there's certainly no harm in using multiple blends. Some people I think even mix their colours and do it in one pass, but I think at least a 2-pass works best for me. And there you go. If you find there's any, you can add bits of foliage to it, or a tree or anything. So here I can see there's just a slight blemish there, which I'm not 100% happy about, because it probably gave me a bolt hole. So you can just drip some more glue onto it and cover it up, Shouldn't really do it with my fingers, tips on that. Let's just sprinkle on. Yep. Now, what wooden ceilings would recommend you do is that you overspray. Once you're happy with it, you spray on some more glue to seal it. And I sort of agree with that. Like, I guess for wargaming purposes, you want it to be quite tough. But I think you have to go really gentle with this, because I have sealed extensively with them, and you can end up with this sort of white glaze that's quite visible afterwards. So what I do is a very quick light spritz, just like that, no more than that, to seal it on. And you may lose a little bit of turf during play, not that you notice it. If after a long time you find that it's come off too much, it's so quick to add more that I don't worry about it. So that's how I turf my hexes.